He's a stage magician. He's an illusionist in many, many different ways. He's performed his act all over the world. We've seen it. It's great. And I have seen it. He is with him an even more extraordinary person in some respects. I think Brandon will agree with me there. Starfire Tor, and I am going to have to ask Starfire to introduce herself. This is the first time she has ever interviewed in this particular way, and I think you'll find out why. We're going to be talking about time slips and time travel, movement through time, psi experiments, and all kinds of things that are really way out there beyond the edge with people who kind of do this all the time. This is not beyond their edge. Brandon has a talk show called Out There, which I believe is on cable out in cyberspace, and over the course of the program, we will tell you a little bit more about it. But right now, I would like to introduce Brandon Scott and Starfire Tor. And to be honest with you, I don't know exactly where we are going. There are so many different areas that we could cover here. I want to say, let's start with the time material, Starfire, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what a time shift is, and maybe that's the best place to start. Or we may have already started there, I don't know.
I'd be happy to, Whitley. I am the discoverer and the chief researcher of a phenomenon called time shifts. And what I discovered was that the Earth actually fluctuates as far as reality is concerned. The Earth is forever changing. Things appear, disappear. In fact, I discovered that there is something called a core matrix. And if you think of your computer and you think of the hard drive, and then you think of these software programs that go into the hard drive that make things run, that's what our world is generated by. And it's attached to the human brain, which acts as a biosoftware. And I discovered that this is going on. Our planet actually becomes an edited version of itself, producing a myriad of coexisting timelines.
Now,
Would you like to know how I discovered it?
Well, this isn't so different from what modern physics is actually saying about the nature of the universe. But yeah, I would like to know how you discovered it. I think we all would.
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I would notice things around me changing. For example, very simple, a blue shirt would suddenly become a yellow shirt, and not because there was an accident in the laundry. There would be a poltergeist-like activity, the keys moving around, objects appear, objects vanish, things that lots of people all over the world have all experienced. And then one day, when I was with two friends up on a roof in Miami, we filmed a UFO. I have it on film, and it was such a spectacular event that
when was
it made...
This?
What?
When was this? What time? What date?
Well, that's the interesting part of the story, because
I thought it might be.
What actually happened is that what I discovered is that I have documented evidence of that one single event happening in 2 separate years. And that's how I absolutely got my first piece of hardcore documented evidence that time shifts exist and that we have coexisting timelines. So it's not just anecdotal. And I've spent a lifetime collecting actual hard evidence. So way back when, one of the men that I was with is a very well-known attorney now. The other one at the time was working for NBC, and he's now a very well-known actor, writer, and director, and I know that lots of people have seen him on something at some time. And it was this actor who was actually handling the camera, and we filmed the UFO, very spectacular, just right over the apartment where I was living. And like I said, it was so spectacular that it made the newspapers, and it even said that a highway patrolman chased the UFO down a particular expressway, even mentioned the street
Well,
that I'm living on.
If this made the newspapers, is there any place we could see the story on the Internet?
I don't know if the story's on the Internet. I have the hard copies of the paper, and I also have a copy from the microfiche when I visited down there. I don't know. I'm sure that it can be accessed through the Miami Herald, which is the newspaper that ran it. They're the primo paper down there.
Okay, what was the date that the story ran?
Well, it says, according to the documents that I have, August, I think August 25th of 1973. That's what it says.
Interestingly enough, August 25th is my wife's birthday.
It is?
Yeah, we're getting into some kind of weird time thing here already.
That's very interesting. Well, it's going to get real weird now. So the film was on Super 8, and the actor who took the film, he developed it, handed it to me, and years later when I moved out here, sometime in the 1980s, I had it transferred to video. Okay? And I just wrote down the date that I remembered, which was 1973. That seemed very simple. In fact, I had the newspaper articles to remind me of the date. So I'm sitting there waiting for the processing to take place, and then suddenly I realized, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the picture. It couldn't have been 1973. I wasn't even living there in that year. In fact, the person that I was with, I was married at that time, I hadn't even met him until 1974. And we weren't even living in that particular place until 1975. So how did this happen? So here we have a conundrum. We have the event documented as having happened in August of 1973, and yet I hadn't even met my then husband at the time until 1974, and yet he was one of the people present. Part of the first part of the film that my friend took of this has sort of those homey pictures of myself and my husband and my cat caught in time. And it's attached to the film. It's unedited. And in fact, I was just talking to my actor friend who said that he's ready actually to come forward and talk about his experience.
Oh, great.
So I think that's going to be a big, big step for him. So here we have one single event. It's a big event. Made the papers, and of course I have it on film, and of course I'm there on film in a time with people that I didn't even know at the time. All of this is documented. So that's my first case where I knew I had the documented evidence of a time shift, the shifting of time. Same event.
Now, when you say a time shift, exactly what do you mean? Are you talking about being in two different universes and kind of your consciousness moving between them, or exactly what is this, that time kind of slips and so it's events mix up that are actually happening in two different times and get compressed into one memory? What define your terms a little bit more.
I'll do my best. I can talk about this for hours, but I'll try to compile this into moments. What I have discovered, and please understand this is an ongoing research project, that I don't have all of the answers. I just have a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of documentation. But what I have found out is that there are coexisting timelines, not just one parallel world, not just one consciousness, but in the world, in the timeline that we're talking in right now, the one that we are very aware of, I call that the dominant consciousness timeline. Now, it's probably very possible that we're all in 1,000 to 1,000,000 other timelines and we feel the exact same dominance. But since we're all agreeing that we are dominant here, that's how I refer to it.
Because, you know, there's a physicist who's just published a paper just recently saying that this is exactly correct, in effect, what you're saying, and not only that, we can conceivably he's trying to build a machine, a serious time machine that will be able to travel back in time, and the so-called grandfather paradox will never happen because you will never travel back into a universe where it could happen. Now,
that is correct. I've been
now you're saying that you're living this right now.
Right now, and
Whoa.
I've published this, and I've been teaching the very thing that you just said. I've been teaching that.
Now, okay, folks, listen to this now. She is teaching people how to do this. And I did it, as you know, my listeners know, by accident in a Jeep with another guy's family's kid in the car. Yep. So I know it's possible. Here is a teacher of this. Let's listen.
That is correct. Now, one of the wonderful things that happened for me and my ability to teach what I had learned in research is the computer. So many people have computers. They know what a hard drive is, and they know what the software. So when I talk about coexisting timeline, here's the way that I put it across. Let's say, Whitley, you're writing a script or a book right now. And so you will make your first draft, and you save that to your hard drive, right? Okay?
Right.
And now you're going to make revisions, lots of revisions. But you never want to alter the original first draft. That's going to remain golden, okay? So every time you do a revision, you edit, and you have a new script. But all of the revisions have been saved onto your hard drive. Now, think of each and every one of those revisions as a coexisting timeline, okay? And now you can go back into any one of these saved documents and pull out a paragraph here, a piece there, a chapter there, and you can do an editing job, a copy-paste. And you've created a new revised script. That's what's happening on this planet. We are being revised constantly. So all of the timelines exist at the same time. They are being saved on the hard drive that I call the core matrix. I used to call it the matrix until people picked up my research and began to write movies and so forth using it. So I changed it slightly to call it the core matrix, so that it would be understood that this is part of my research and not a movie. Okay? So that's very simply the way that works, but it even goes further. I have developed a scientific protocol, something that Brandon has been working on with me for years, that I call reality shift manifestation experiments. I can actually go into certain known vortex points that I have discovered, places where the energy is just right, and I can go through protocols and I can manifest objects. I can actually manifest objects, hundreds, whatever I want.
Now, when you say manifest, wait a minute, slow down, Starfire. This is real interesting, and we're going to have to get back to it in a couple seconds because we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, what in the heck does she mean, manifest objects? We'll be right back. Starfire Tor makes reference to language of the birds. Let's hear what William Henry has to say about his book.
The language of the birds is thought to be the original language that was spoken in the Garden of Eden. It's the mystery school language, and it's very interesting that she would bring it up because those in the know are constantly getting in touch with me saying, this is like your all-time best book. If anybody wants to get into William Henry material, they've got to read this because not only is it a great introduction, but it also represents the apex of sort of our mystery school understanding because this language offers the keys to the codes that opens up the mysteries. It literally puts you in resonance or in sync with the thought sphere of the mystery schools.
You can get William Henry's Language of the Birds from unknowncountry.com. Click on the store tab, then go to the William Henry section. You'll find Language of the Birds. Don't miss Language of the Birds, and don't miss WilliamHenry.net, William Henry's great website. Keep up with what he's doing and where he's going. Don't miss a Dreamland bonus this week, a Dreamland special event. Go down to the bottom of the Windows Media Player. You'll hear me and Linda Moulton Howe discussing communication with the Greys based on a description of how to do this given to her by a military man who almost certainly did it, and my own detailed descriptions for the first time of what I did in my process of communication with the Greys. Don't miss it. I think that Wayne Herschel's book, The Hidden Records, is a remarkable achievement. He has found in the ruins of ancient Egypt a map not just of Orion or of a certain part of the sky, but of the whole sky as it was thousands of years ago. His book is profusely illustrated, carefully written. It is brilliant, and the most brilliant thing about it is the list price and the price on Amazon is $36, but our price is $34.95, and you can get an additional $6 off. That's right, $6 off by simply inputting the coupon code HR1, that's HR and the number 1, into your shopping cart as you check out of the unknowncountry.com store. That takes it all the way down to $28.95 for this wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, special book.
You're listening to Whitley Strieber's Dreamland.
And we're talking to a couple of very, very interesting people indeed. Brandon Scott, who has yet to make a peep, and we're going to hear from him in just a few minutes, and Starfire Tor, who is a time journeyer and a most unusual teacher. I don't think that you're going to be finding the lessons of the type that she teaches too many places. In fact, no other place. Okay, now you talked about manifesting material objects, Starfire. Could you explain this and give us some examples?
Yes, I can. And Brandon, I'm going to ask you to help me out on this too. I have a mailing list called Interdimension on Yahoo Groups.
I'm looking at it right now.
And many of the members of my list live all over the world, and they have participated for years in my research and experiments. And years ago, when I began the Reality Fest manifestation experiments, I had my group recommend items that they wanted to manifest. In other words, from out of nothing to something. And of course, Brandon, being a master stage magician and illusionist, not only can he tell if someone is faking manifesting something, but he also helps me to know when someone is trying to pull something on me. So he's watching me to make sure that I am legitimate, and he's also watching other people for me to make sure that they're not pulling something, a hoax or something like that. So now here's how it works, very, very, very simply. I have the ability, I've developed this ability, and I can teach this ability to others. I can hook into other coexisting timelines, search them, find bytes or data or scenarios where something exists in another timeline but may not exist in ours. I can make a copy-paste, pull it over here, and voila, you have it. It's here. It can be an item. It can be a life transition. It very, very has to do with time travel and the moving of time. That's why I call it time shift. It's a very interesting thing. Brandon, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, Brandon.
Hello, Whitley.
Hi, Brandon.
I first of all, I've been really very honored to be able to be part of many of Starfire's reality shift manifestation experiments. I've always been interested myself in time. I experience a lot of synchronicities and time loops. And as a magician, I was very fascinated to find out about these manifestations. So I had at first kind of just tagged along to see what was going on, and started to get involved via that. We had some experiences of obvious time shift, and I started to learn how this was being done. The particular experiment that comes to mind that I think, Starfire, you started to talk about was when the members of your list sent
103 items
to be found. And what we did is we went to this particular vortex that
to be manifested.
Yeah, to be manifested.
Right.
We went to this place where and looked throughout the entire place, everywhere possible, pretty much several acres of space, to make sure that none of these items were there. And then the protocol was put into place, which she'll explain a few more details about. And when we, after the implementation of the protocols, we went looking for these objects, and they were there. Several of them, almost pretty much all of them, and many of them very unusual objects.
And some of them we actually saw manifest, just appear right in front of our eyes.
Give us a specific example.
Okay, why don't we talk about the F-14 fighter jet? I have a couple of pilots on my list, and they requested that see if I can manifest an F-14 fighter jet. Now, I got to tell you, the place that I'm going, which is a vortex, but it's an urban, suburban area, I really, knew that I wasn't going to be seeing an F-14 fighter jet, but Brandon and I went there. It was on the list.
It was on the list.
It was on the list, and we scoured the many acres. There are lots of stores and lots of places to go, and no F-14 fighter jet, not even a toy. And then we do go into a store, we do the protocol, and right away, a huge box, maybe 1.5 feet wide and maybe 8 inches tall, containing an F-14 fighter jet toy. So what we have this beautiful picture of Brandon holding up the manifested F-14.
And the interesting thing is that whenever these things occur, Starfire always takes testimonials from the people that she encounters, asking them, was this box here? When did this arrive? And the interesting thing is a lot of times they either don't know or
it doesn't belong in the store. It's not in their computer, not on the manifest. Now, about the F-14, a couple of days later, we got invited to go to a military air show, which I knew nothing about prior to this experiment, and I actually have photographs of me standing in front of a real live F-14 fighter jet.
It's as if the protocol activates a magnetic attraction of some sort.
In other words, what you're saying is that it sort of drew your life into a situation where you would be near an F-14.
Something like that. I don't know all the answers, but certainly that F-14 manifesting had a life of its own.
However, there's another aspect to this where...
But it didn't just pop into existence. It was it was that your life was you were drawn to an existing F-14.
Yes, it just came to pass that myself and Brandon and that F-14 came together.
So that is one of the aspects, but the aspect about things actually popping up out of nowhere is also an element here, where...
The main element.
Yes, where there would be, to give you an example, the one that happened near that vortex area on the street.
The store?
The store. Okay, where we both had eye perception that the storefront had nothing but garden items. And within less than 45 minutes after hours with nobody working there and somewhat related to an ongoing research, suddenly it is an entire exhibit of Egyptian artifacts that really just appeared.
Right. What was in this store display? It had been very hard, very heavy fountains, things for the garden. I mean, very, very heavy. And then within 20 to 40 minutes, it was now all Egyptian. Big caskets and bureaus and statues and mummies, and it's bizarre. But that is a Reality Fest manifestation. And things on that particular street, which are in a particular part of Los Angeles where there's a vortex, things change. Things happen there, and I document.
So you have to be in a vortex, one of these vortexes, as you call it, to do this?
Nope. No. I just find that when I go to certain vortexes, it amplifies my ability to work with groups of people.
Oh, I see.
I can do it anywhere.
Okay, let me ask you something about... I've had, as you guys know, a fair number of peculiar experiences, and
lovely experiences.
Yeah, some of them relate to this, and let me I'm going to throw a few out as we continue our conversation. And the first one I'm going to throw out right before the break is this. Now, I knew a man called Joseph Stein, who's passed on now, but who had the ability to appear and disappear before your eyes. And I think as an illusionist, Brandon, this would interest you because he didn't need any equipment. I'll give you an example. I was with a bunch of guys. We were working on a house building project up in upstate New York, in Armonk, New York, about 15 years ago or so, 20 years ago. And Joe's the leader of the group, and he's a tough guy, you know. I mean, he's definitely will shake you up if you do anything wrong. And so he's come marching down this path. We've screwed up. I forget how I'm building the house. We're all standing there clutching together in a little group, waiting to have our heads bitten off. And he's walking towards us. Our eyes are on this man. All of a sudden, he's not there. I mean, there's no tree to go behind. He's just not there. And we're looking, and just silent. I mean, there's nothing to say. Where the hell is this man? Then he comes up from the other direction, and he says to one of us who had a loose piece of bridge work, was making this squishing noise in his mouth. He says, "What the hell is that noise?" And we all turn around, and there he is. Now, maybe you guys can explain what he did. I asked him about it, and he told me it was bullshit, as he put it. He didn't even want me to ask the question. It was ridiculous. He said, "If you can't figure it out, that's your problem." Okay, we'll be right back. Recently, I added a 10th meditation to the meditation series in our subscriber section. This meditation is called Quantum Meditation. It is about harnessing the power of the mind when it is in an indeterminate state. It's a whole new way of thinking about meditation. I think that you'll find it useful and helpful. The subscriber section offers you so very from me, from William Henry, from Lawrence Gardner, from Wayne Dyer, from dozens and dozens of others. You just can't get anything like it anywhere else, not even close to this price. Join the unknowncountry.com subscriber section. You need us, and we need you. Starfire Tor makes reference to language of the birds. Let's hear what William Henry has to say about his book.
The language of the birds is thought to be the original language that was spoken in the Garden of Eden. It's the mystery school language, and it's very interesting that you would bring it up because those in the know are constantly getting in touch with me saying, this is like your all-time best book. If anybody wants to get into William Henry material, they've got to read this because not only is it a great introduction, but it also represents the apex of sort of our mystery school understanding because this language offers the keys to the codes that opens up the mysteries. It literally puts you in resonance or in sync with the thought sphere of the mystery schools.
You can get William Henry's Language of the Birds from unknowncountry.com. Click on the store tab, then go to the William Henry section. You'll find Language of the Birds. Don't miss Language of the Birds, and don't miss WilliamHenry.net, William Henry's great website. Keep up with what he's doing and where he's going. I think that Wayne Herschel's book, The Hidden Records, is a remarkable achievement. He has found in the ruins of ancient Egypt a map not just of Orion or of a certain part of the sky, but of the whole sky as it was thousands of years ago. His book is profusely illustrated, carefully written. It is brilliant, and the most brilliant thing about it is the list price and the price on Amazon is $36, but our price is $34.95, and you can get an additional $6 off. That's right, $6 off by simply inputting the coupon code HR1. That's HR and the number 1 into your shopping cart as you check out of the unknowncountry.com store. That takes it all the way down to $28.95 for this wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, special book. Okay, we're back, and Brandon and Starfire have had a little time to think about old Joe and his manifestations. What was happening? Either one of you can answer. I mean, the magician can answer, or the ultra-magician can answer, or both of you.
Well, I think I'll just speak up first and then pass it off to Brandon. Whitley, what you have experienced, Brandon and I, it happens to us all the time. It's just part of the course. Can you do it? Brandon,
well,
take it.
It happens to us. A lot of times, not that we're conscious that it's occurring. First of all, I wanted to share with you that I have seen this as well. There's two particular individuals that I have seen just appear and disappear, and it caught my attention as a magician. How can this be done? I think in the show that you saw, I actually try to replicate that in a magician way.
That's why I brought this up. Yes, you did indeed.
But it's a total trick what I'm doing on stage. We had Starfire and I had an experience that wasn't really provoked due to us initiating an experiment. It just happened to us, and it's really one of those fascinating things that has ever happened to me in my life. We were at a major hotel near the Los Angeles airport at a convention, and we were with two other people, and all of a sudden, and Starfire will give you some of the details.
Well, I just want to say that we were researching time travel.
And yeah, we were researching time travel, and all of a sudden, Starfire, it was like a glitch in time. This is where I had my first eureka moment about this. There was like a glitch in time, and whereas Starfire was standing a few inches from me, now she was 30 feet away. What she was carrying was no longer in her hands. The other two people that were standing next to us were way across the hallway, coming up from an escalator, and another person that was with us was even further away, coming out of an elevator. All of these people had the same experience. And we then we said, hey, what happened? They were all aware.
And I'd like to add that when this started, we were in a restaurant sitting at a table, and then suddenly we weren't.
And the restaurant was full, and then and this appeared to have only taken a nanosecond. It was like a glitch in time. It's like you blink, and this happened. Obviously, the first thing I noticed is that Starfire wasn't standing next to me. Second thing, when I turned around, was that the majority of the restaurant was empty. And the third, that the other people that were with us were now reapproaching us, each with a very unusual story. The people that ended up coming down from the bottom said the weirdest thing just happened to them. Some strange thing happened in the basement where the parking lot was. And we then went to and try to reconstruct what could have happened. Where did the objects that were in Starfire hands possibly go to? We checked the times, and calibrated that in that glitch of time, 45 to 48 minutes had transpired.
That is absolutely correct. And I've been spotted by friends and other people appearing in places, and I know that I'm not there. And they have had talks with me and conversations, or they've seen me, and I'm still trying to figure that one out too, Whitley, really.
Well, if you know amazing. About this, if you just know about it, that we are manifesting on a lot of different timelines at the same time, do you suppose it kind of makes you sort of slippery in time? And maybe that's the explanation? Because, I believe that this is real. In fact, as time goes on, and I do mean that, it becomes clearer and clearer. The physicists do too. They would agree with you. So far, you guys haven't described anything that a lot of physicists wouldn't say would be possible, assuming we could get between the worlds. I was talking to Martin Rees, the astronomer royal, on this show about a year ago, and he said to me that there are so-called brain worlds, and that is to say worlds with a kind of membrane between them. But he said we can't cross that membrane, even though it's so thin that it's almost not there. The amount of energy it would take to cross it is greater than the amount of energy in any universe that it separates. So that's why we don't see these other dimensions. But that's not quite true, you would say.
No, one of the experiences that I've been studying for years and that my interdimension group has been helping me with is I also excel in something called OBE, or out-of-body
Out-of-body travel, sure. We know about it. We talk about it all the time on this show.
Right. And I've gone to different timelines. I've been to places, it's just like very similar to things that have happened to you, I believe, where you think, this is not a dream, this is very real. And then my group helps me to research it, and we find out that I was very spot on about what I saw, what I did. So, no, I don't believe in these veils, and I don't believe in these separations. And personally, I think I'm moving around in time all the time. I think Brandon does too, and I think a lot of people do. I think that there are time travelers that are involved. As I study time shifts, I am convinced that time travelers are at least one of the elements that create these coexisting timelines, even if only by the fact that they are moving through time. They may not be doing it on purpose. And then I believe that there are others, other factions who may very well have some ancient technology that they're using or some future technology. And the thing that I always teach is that, at some point in time travel is invented. Therefore, time travelers are here now.
Exactly. I've had experiences, the subscribers can hear me describing a recent experience of that is, to me, just definitive. I was basically in a sleep at night, and I found myself in a state with this kind of orange light all around me and a great roaring sound. And then I was with an old friend who had died, and a person we had seen, Ann and I had seen that earlier that day at a Kinko's, who she thought was an angel, a marvelous man, and apparently was there kind of getting ready for this. And they told me, and I was in a physical body where I was.
Right.
They told me that they were forward in time, and that they have learned in the future to create bodies that fit us, that fit the souls, and that they are actually combing through the past and looking for people to bring forward when they die in their time and replant in new bodies. And they said they were going to do this to me, but when I was finished with this life, and they wanted me to know that and to tell others that it was likely to happen to them too. What do you make of that?
I find it very, very, very interesting. It's right in line with several of my research lines. One of them is something that I call the time shift living dead. Now, people all over the world have experienced this, but my group and we keep track of this.
Starfire, wait, I hate to interrupt you, but you mentioned your group. Now, is it possible for people to join your Yahoo group?
Yes.
Tell us how to do that.
You go to Yahoo Groups and go to INTER Dimension, DIMENSION, and there I am. And
also, if you just go to Yahoo Groups and put in Starfire Tor,
you'll find me too.
You'll find her too, yeah.
Right.
I've done that, and I'm ready to join. So
great.
Okay, go ahead.
So there is a interesting phenomenon, a sidebar of time shifts where people that you're just absolutely sure have died, they're now alive. Most of the ones that we chronicle usually are celebrities, because most people know celebrities. You can know somebody in Australia, somebody in Germany, London, the United States, South America, Russia, but a celebrity, everybody knows them. So when one of them dies, again, people have a memory that they did die, and very often we are able to pick up the hard documentation.
I'm sure I'm not alone in agreeing. I've had that happen to me. I can't put my finger on a particular celebrity just at the moment, but now that you mention it, I've had that happen to me before. Yes, I know exactly, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have too, where you suddenly hear the name of a celebrity and think, wait a minute, didn't she die a couple of years ago? And it turns out she didn't, or she did, but now she's back.
Right. What happens is when we go into a new timeline and it's an edited version, things change. It's like taking a grain of sand on the beach and you move it, you know, the old saying, and then at the end of it, there's a building. Sometimes in other timelines, people who had died, they're back again in this timeline. It's freaky, but it lets us know that a time shift has occurred. Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, I always was fascinated with the way Starfire was able to detect this, and I've asked her why are her perceptual filters able to tune into this? Because I've always asked, hey, do you remember such and such a celebrity? I go, yes. Well, do you remember if they died? And sometimes for me and other people, it's a stretch to try to remember. The only times I have nailed remembering is because they're celebrities that I have met. Because I've interviewed a lot of celebrities through my being a host of entertainment news shows. And if I personally met them, I would have remembered that they had passed away. But share with us, Starfire, the aspect of your brain, or why it is that you don't get the amnesia erased of the prior time shift event occurring that's now a new time shift.
Right. Well, thanks, Brandon. One of the things that I study and I teach about is why is it that all of the editings of timelines can happen and people just are oblivious to it? Well, the thing is, people are not oblivious to it. There are cues all the time, and I've documented quite a few. A building appears out of nowhere, or a person rides up and down the street that they live on thousands of times, and suddenly they're on their own street and they're lost. They don't even recognize the street anymore. The brain becomes assimilated to the time shift as part of the software program that is running. But what I've noticed is when I teach people about time shifts and then they have an experience, there's a part of their brain that can no longer be completely fooled by the illusion and the assimilation of the time shift brain matter. So anyone who's listening to the show, I think I just rescued you from the total world of virtual reality illusion.
And this is what we're interested in doing is breaking down the barriers. That's what this show is all about. That's why it's an important program, folks. Tell your friends about it because it helps. It is this. I know what I'm doing here. This is no accident. We'll be right back. Recently, I added a 10th meditation to the meditation series in our subscriber section. This meditation is called Quantum Meditation. It is about harnessing the power of the mind when it is in an indeterminate state. It's a whole new way of thinking about meditation. I think that you'll find it useful and helpful. The subscriber section offers you so very from me, from William Henry, from Lawrence Gardner, from Wayne Dyer, from dozens and dozens of others. You just can't get anything like it anywhere else, not even close to this price. Join the unknowncountry.com subscriber section. You need us, and we need you. Starfire Tor makes reference to Language of the Birds. Let's hear what William Henry has to say about his book.
The language of the birds is thought to be the original language that was spoken in the Garden of Eden. It's the mystery school language, and it's very interesting that she would bring it up because those in the know are constantly getting in touch with me saying, this is like your all-time best book. If anybody wants to get into William Henry material, they've got to read this because not only is it a great introduction, but it also represents the apex of sort of our mystery school understanding because this language offers the keys to the codes that opens up the mysteries. It literally puts you in resonance or in sync with the thought sphere of the mystery schools.
You can get William Henry's Language of the Birds from unknowncountry.com. Click on the store tab, then go to the William Henry section. You'll find Language of the Birds. Don't miss Language of the Birds, and don't miss WilliamHenry.net, William Henry's great website. Keep up with what he's doing and where he's going. This is Whitley Strieber. We're back on Dreamland with Starfire Tor and Brandon Scott. Starfire Tor has got a Yahoo group, Inter-Dimension. Go to Yahoo Group, search on Inter-Dimension, or search on Starfire Tor. You can join her group, and if you do that, just by participating, you're going to find that these barriers that are supposedly uncrossable between the worlds are going to start to kind of get full of holes for you, and you're going to get to be end up with a bigger life, I can assure you. You know, we're coming up, this is our last segment together on Dreamland, and Ann Strieber is going to be talking to Starfire and Brandon in the subscriber section with some really getting into some deep, deep stuff. So don't miss that. Do not miss that. If you're not a subscriber, it's time to commit. Time to do it. Because as time passes, I mean, this is not going to go on forever. You need this, and it works. It's very, very real. I want to talk about astral tagging. They sent me this fascinating email. I'm probably going to use this email as a show description for this thing. And what is astral tagging, folks?
Astral tagging is a PSI protocol that came naturally to me as a child. I studied it and was able to develop it and teach it to other people. Astral tagging uses the human brain, the human soul, and the astral realm to actually, tag criminals and expose them and end their criminal reign. That's about it. We just come into cases, and it's very well documented on my list. And I don't know what else to say about it. It's quite unusual.
Well, when I joined the list, started to learn a lot about what was going on here, and they had specific cases where an event had occurred, and in many cases a criminal needed to be found.
And it was a cold case.
Yeah, and so the group implemented the protocols of the PSI.
Of the astral tagging, which I did.
And amazingly, so very quickly thereafter, these criminals were found. Like somehow whether it's through.
Right. Well, it's a bit lengthy to describe, but it's a personal thing to me. It's something that I can do, something that I think there is possibly some, I'm going to say this, angelic involvement in this. When I was a child, I had an experience with what I'm going to refer to as angels, because as a child, that's how I perceived it. And they showed me this neon green energy, and I could go out into this astral realm, and they would show me people who had done very bad things, and I would focus my energy, and this neon green energy would just tag them. It would just envelop them, and then from that moment on, that criminal couldn't help themselves. What they did would become exposed. Sometimes even they themselves would expose the crimes that they had committed. And this could be someone who's cheated you. It could be a serial rapist, a serial killer. It can be anyone who has committed a moral or ethical crime.
And it didn't need to be a crime committed against you, just any crime.
No. I can go after anyone or anything.
Because, I've learned from my own experiences how very, very important it is for people to pay for crimes in this life, that it's a lot more expensive to take them into the next. Is that part of this in some way?
I'm very big on justice, treating people well, compassion, that these are the basics, and astral tagging developed as a personal soul response that I had when I was a child. And I found that as I grew older, I was able to develop it. I noticed it, and then I began to teach it to people, and it worked. It worked great. So mostly I go after people who I don't know. I am requested to do these things. I do it very quietly. I don't advertise what I do. I'm not about advertising or promoting. I don't like that. I'd rather do it very quietly. But of course,
which is why this is the first time you've ever interviewed anywhere.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. Should someone, of course, do something untoward toward me, well, that's just a huge mistake, because no one ever gets away with it.
That would be disappointing, folks. So I wouldn't even think about it.
It's just not a wise thing to do. And we all learn. And I love to teach what I know, because it's not exclusive to me. If I can teach it to others and they can affect some sort of justice in this world, that's a really good day for me.
Now,
what do you think, Brandon?
let me ask you, Brandon, how did you come into connection with Starfire? Because I think the way you guys connected together and the way we're all connecting together with this could be very interesting. It could be part, and you referred a little while ago, one of you did, to the moment when a time machine is invented, and I've thought that the closer we get to that moment, and I don't think it's very far away, the more this reality comes into focus, kind of. The less mysterious and the more obvious it all becomes to seem. So how did you get together? How'd you meet?
Well, this is an amazing situation. I was in Marina del Rey doing a magic show, and I did not know Starfire. I turned to my right, and she was standing there on top of a stairway. She had gotten there.
I received kind of like this telepathic message to go find this guy named Brandon, because I had gotten this sort of psychic knowing that a certain person, an actor by the name of John Eric Hexum, was going to die. I didn't know the man, but I was like compelled, just an absolute obsession to save this man's life. And I went and found Brandon, and I said, take me to John Eric Hexum. I want to save his life. And
I said, I don't know who you're talking about. Who are you? She persuaded me that this was very important and that this was a message that she'd gotten. So she invited me to sit down, and my fiance at the time had joined us. And she said, look, I don't know how to explain this to you, but
I did.
Yeah, this man is, and you got to go talk to him. I go, how? I don't know how. I mean, so now here's the really interesting thing.
The next day?
The very next day. She actually told me, just call the set and say that you're Brandon Scott the magician.
To say those words.
Just say those words.
And you will pass through the veil.
And I did that. I took faith. I called, and they said, oh, yes, sure, we'll send a limousine for you, Mr. Scott. And they picked me up and took me right to him. And I said, I have an important message to tell you. You must meet this person. The interesting thing is also that the show he was working on
had a crystal,
and it was about time travel.
Yes. The show called Lord. Sadly, I could not get the right people to do the right thing, and everything that I tried to prevent happened. Sadly, John Eric Hexum took a prop pistol on the set of his show, and he blew his brains out. And at the time that I tried to prevent it, on that day, I tried to call everybody that I had lined up to save his life, and every single person was unreachable, including Brandon. I went practically mad. It was a very dramatic and traumatic time.
Now, did he commit suicide intentionally, or was it an accident?
No.
It was a freak event.
He was playing Russian roulette with a prop pistol, and I knew the whole thing in advance. That happens with me, Whitley. It's a burden, but I do try to save lives, and even if I look a little crazy or stupid, and I didn't want to look like I was a stalker or something, so this is how I did it. And I do know that I sat down with John Eric Hexum and Brandon in an Italian restaurant, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell him what I knew, that he was in danger of dying. Instead, I just wanted to become his friend, and in doing so, persuade him away from what I knew was going to kill him. It's a decision that haunts me to this day. Would he be alive if I had just sat there and said, go on the set, on the stage, don't pick up a gun, this is going to happen? I'm haunted by this. And
how bizarre. And so, Brandon, you kind of started out thinking that there was something to her, I guess.
Oh, totally, yeah. I immediately realized that there was something bigger than this even, because everything she was saying was there, and even in the subsequent weeks and months leading to this event, there were all sorts of events that she, in a way, I don't want to say forecasted, but saw or was shown.
I saw the future.
Yeah, and she does this a lot with airplane crashes.
Do you see anything now Starfire, that you feel like you could tell us? Anything at all?
No, not right now. Not right now. I just don't want to throw something out there.
Yeah, I understand. Understand perfectly.
However, on the list, oftentimes this is one of the devices by which some of this documentation occurs. She will post.
I'll post it before it happens, and then it happens, and there's the documentation.
There's a lot of that on that list.
On Inter-Dash Dimension. Yeah, that probably is a worthwhile place to go, that list. Because, no, I'm serious, because there is something, our relationship to time is changing. I mean, the thing that happened to me, I've had a lot of things throughout my life happening in regard to time. But the thing that happened to me just a couple of weeks ago was a mind bender, and I think it was real. I think there really is a time machine that is getting close to us, that we're going to kind of come to a new sort of singularity in a month or 10 years or 20 years, I don't know how long, when this thing is actually, we come to the moment when this thing is invented. And one of the scientists I knew back in the days when I was working on trying to figure out the communion experience used to say, we thought a lot about the Greys and examined the possibility that they were from some other time. And he used to say that a time machine would be the most visible thing in the universe. In fact, before it was invented, it would be so visible that we would not be able to see it. We wouldn't know we were seeing it.
Right. Well, I would love to talk to you more about your experience with time travel or time travelers. Of course, I'm sure you can understand.
But my listeners have heard all of that. It's you we're interested in right now.
Right. Well, have you ever experienced some sort of a misty fog around you? Sometimes it's called electronic fog.
No,
have you ever had that experience?
Not that I recall.
In a way, that's the other step that further connected me with continuing experiments with Starfire, that I started to see some physical manifestations of phenomena. First of all, I discovered that it was somebody who understood the time loops and synchronicities that I was experiencing, and I could talk with, and it could be explained. And one time she calls me saying, "Come over right away. There's this thing happening in my house." I go over to her house, and there is this very peculiar fog type of invisible substance that is transparent. It
was a three-dimensional cloud-like thing that was all through my lower part of my home, and it was web-like. But you could walk through it. Had no smell, no odor, no feel to it. You could walk through it, and when you walked, it parted and then reformed behind you. We decided to leave my home for a while. We went down to my car, which is it was parked, not attached to my home. And my car also inside was filled with the exact same ethereal substance. And Brandon, you were saying it was not.
It wasn't. We checked the vents. It wasn't fog. It wasn't something that burned. But attached in further researching this, and this, as she mentioned earlier on, is all still under investigation. We went to revisit that one of the people who had vanished at the time of the hotel incident.
Yes.
And a picture was taken. I took a picture of Starfire and this person, and that fog substance materialized on the picture.
Right.
We actually caught it on the picture. And
right.
So these are some of the details that further kept me involved in continuing experimentations with Starfire from the moment I met her.
Well, folks, we have come to the end of Dreamland, but not to the end of Brandon and Starfire and their fascinating journey, because Ann Strieber is going to be joining them for our subscribers and talking about her own experiences and that have happened to her since her near-death experience, and the kind of opening into a more shamanic level of being than she was in before she had that experience. And now up on Dreamland next, Linda Howe, and it's a wow, so stay tuned. I think that Wayne Herschel's book, The Hidden Records, is a remarkable achievement. He has found in the ruins of ancient Egypt a map not just of Orion or of a certain part of the sky, but of the whole sky as it was thousands of years ago. His book is profusely illustrated, carefully written. It is brilliant, and the most brilliant thing about it is the list price and the price on Amazon is $36, but our price is $34.95, and you can get an additional $6 off. That's right, $6 off by simply inputting the coupon code HR1, that's HR and the number 1, into your shopping cart as you check out of the unknowncountry.com store. That takes it all the way down to $28.95 for this wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, special book. Recently, I added a 10th meditation to the meditation series in our subscriber section. This meditation is called Quantum Meditation. It is about harnessing the power of the mind when it is in an indeterminate state. It's a whole new way of thinking about meditation. I think that you'll find it useful and helpful. The subscriber section offers you so very, from me, from William Henry, from Lawrence Gardner, from Wayne Dyer, from dozens and dozens of others. You just can't get anything like it anywhere else, not even close to this price. Join the unknowncountry.com subscriber section. You need us, and we need you. I think that Wayne Herschel's book, The Hidden Records, is a remarkable achievement. He has found in the ruins of ancient Egypt a map not just of Orion or of a certain part of the sky, but of the whole sky as it was thousands of years ago. His book is profusely illustrated, carefully written. It is brilliant, and the most brilliant thing about it is the list price and the price on Amazon is $36, but our price is $34.95, and you can get an additional $6 off. That's right, $6 off by simply inputting the coupon code HR1, that's HR and the number 1, into your shopping cart as you check out of the unknowncountry.com store. That takes it all the way down to $28.95 for this wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, special book. You're about to experience something you just can't get elsewhere. Emmy Award-winning science reporter Linda Moulton Howe reporting on the absolute leading edge of science discovery and the true mysteries of the unknown. Don't miss her website, earthfiles.com, the one science website that tells you the secrets and gives you the facts the others dare not. earthfiles.com. This week, she's reporting on some extremely disturbing cat mutilations, as well as one of the most unusual cattle mutilations ever recorded. Here she is from Albuquerque, Linda Moulton Howe.
Thanks, Whitley. Well, first up is a recent unusual series of deaths in New York. It was on June 3rd, half a dozen skinned cats with blood and organs removed were found by construction workers on top of a 2-story brick building in Long Island City, Queens, across the East River from New York City. The cat remains were taken to the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in Manhattan. There, Special Agent Joseph Pentangelo, who has worked in New York's ASPCA for 3 years, examined them and said it was, quote, macabre and horrible, unquote, and sent the bodies to the ASPCA hospital. I talked with him Friday about results from preliminary tests.
And at this point, we've determined that the cats' bodies and some of their organs have been treated with a chemical designed to retard or delay decomposition. Chemical like formaldehyde. Also, some of their organs have had latex injected into them, which I understand is also a method to preserve, a method used to preserve organs.
And this would imply what to you?
The implications at this point are that we are speaking to an individual. I don't want to characterize him as a suspect, but we believe we are speaking to the person who is responsible, at least for putting the cats on the roof. And it appears at this point that he was using them for some sort of teaching purposes for biology. Whether or not he's officially sanctioned to do that or he's affiliated with any kind of a learning institution, we have not determined that at this point.
Why would he put them on the roof?
I don't know. That's the disturbing part of it. I don't know if he was doing that. I don't want to speculate.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly caused public alarm doing it. So, and how he came into possession of them, whether or not they were already in that state when he came into possession of them, or whether they were alive when he came into possession of them, is still being investigated.
And have you ever had cat mutilations before?
As far as anything like this, where they're eviscerated and desanguinated, no, I've never had anything like this.
From cats in New York to large animals far west, in northwestern Missouri, in the region around Trenton, something horrible happened to a pregnant mare on Thursday, May 20th. She had been seen alive the afternoon before and was discovered 24 hours later around 3 p.m., dead and mutilated. Her still unborn foal's head seemed melted away by some incomprehensible force. The mare was the granddaughter of a grand champion American quarter horse and was worth at least $5,000. Her owner, who has requested anonymity, has been raising quarter horses for more than 40 years, and this spring has about 100 head in her pastures. 34 of those were pregnant and being watched over by a ranch hand. On Thursday, May 20th, he counted them and realized one was missing. So he went to look for the pregnant mare.
Well, when I went down there, the eyes was completely gone. The tongue was gone. The mouth was kind of pried open. And the colt was halfway out, but there wasn't no head to it.
And the mare was on her back with 4 legs up in the air?
No, she was on her back, but one leg was laying on the ground and her other 3 was up in the air.
Okay. And the foal, could you describe which legs and what was still inside of the mare and the condition of the head and stuff in more detail?
The head on the colt was completely gone. There wasn't no head.
Were you looking at a bone, neck bone, or what?
Yeah, there wasn't. It was just the shoulders is all you could see.
Well,
everything else was gone.
Do you mean that the neck bone and the skull head was not there either?
Right, it was not there. And then it had like 2 holes, 2 round holes in the stomach.
That's in the mare.
In the mare, yeah.
Was there any excisions from the body of the young baby, forgetting for a moment what happened to the head? Were there any cuts on that foal?
I couldn't tell for sure. I didn't examine it thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
There was no tracks, nothing. No blood.
And as you stood staring at this scene, trying to figure out what might have happened, what went through your mind?
I didn't know for sure. It was kind of weird. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the strange because usually if you got a carcass laying around, we've got probably 100, 200 coyotes. You can hear them out there at night, and they're running this ditch all the time, and they wasn't even up there at all. And like the birds didn't have nothing to do with it. But there was no coyote tracks down there. There's nothing, which that's unusual.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a strange deal. I haven't quite figured it out yet.
The back legs of the foal were still in the mare's abdomen, and I asked the owner if in her nearly half-century of raising quarter horses, had she ever seen an unborn foal with a missing head from a mother whose eyeballs, tongue, teeth, and vulva were also missing.
Never. I've had horses hit by lightning. I've had foals that are mummified, in the mares from absorption. I've had all kinds of odd births. I've had a lot of different things that have happened. Nothing that even comes close. Everything was explainable. This is not explainable. There is nothing like it. We had the incision. The one in the stomach was so perfectly round. It would be impossible. I couldn't draw a circle that round. It was just perfect.
Did anybody around you or on your property notice anything unusual in terms of light or sound between May 19th and the 21st?
No, I'm the only person here. It's very, very quiet here. You can hear anything. My dogs would bark if there's anything, unusual going on.
And no barking even?
No barking.
The owner called her local veterinarian, who has seen 3 previous unusual animal deaths in cattle since 1995. But the vet, who also requested anonymity, was not prepared for the inexplicable foal's missing head. It looked as if only the foal's head had been subjected to intense energy while the rest of the unborn body was unaffected, and the mare had suffered bloodless excisions the law enforcement over the past 50 years has called the animal mutilation mystery.
I think the procedure used to amputate the vulva and probably part of the vaginal sphincter, that procedure caused damage to the tissue of the head, such that it was
heated up.
Rapid decomposition. That's the only thing I can tell you. It was just mushy.
And heated or melted.
I don't know that term would be accurate.
Okay, but somehow heat was applied when the vulva tissue was removed.
I wouldn't say that was accurate either. No.
That we don't know.
We just don't know. In looking at the other cases I've seen and looking at the edges of the tissue, trying to determine what technique was used, I don't know. No sign of singeing or burning. No evidence of a normal cutting action like you would use with a sharp instrument. And of course, no sign of blood because all the blood from these animals has been removed. I think that because the foal was close to being delivered, maybe just hours away from being born, that the technology used in the removal of the vulva inadvertently destroyed through some means destroyed the flesh of the foal's head.
That was down in the birth canal.
It was down in the birth canal, and it was just inadvertent that the head tissue was altered.
Wow.
And what method? I don't know. When I look at it, and I have handled it with protective gloves on, and it's like it's the consistency of runny oatmeal. It's like it had been in a pressure cooker for a long period of time, and the mare had. Well, let's put it this way: both eyeballs were missing. The tongue was missing, clear back to its attachment, back on the base of the throat. The udder had been removed. The vulva and vaginal sphincter had been removed, and there was a small incision had been made on the midline of the abdomen. One that in looking at my first impression when I'd seen this the same incision made on a 650-pound heifer. In fact, the first animal that I had witnessed
as a mutilation.
Right, having gone through this, and the first thing that came to my mind was that this was what I would call a spay cut, S-P-A-Y, a spay cut, and it's the positioning of an incision that you would make to perform a hysterectomy, and the location of that is critical so that you can exteriorize the entirety of the ovaries and the uterus for excision. And
were you able to confirm in that other case that a hysterectomy had actually been done?
Yes.
But you were able to confirm that the mare had been exsanguinated, all blood taken out of the muscle tissue?
Yes.
And it was pale pink white?
Yes.
That's unusual in and of itself, isn't it?
Very unusual, but it's been the case with the 4 that I have seen. The technique used on these animals is very exquisite.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I don't know we have the technology to duplicate. So using mutilation really is a very inaccurate term and does disjustice because people hear that and then they think weirdos or cult people. But these things that happen are not things that humans can duplicate.
Why are you and other veterinarians reluctant to speak on the record?
Because of the highly unusual nature of what takes place, the fact that it's a secretive occurrence, and when you consider the possibilities after a logical evaluation of what evidence you do have, the choices on who's responsible are narrow and disturbing. And here are the 2 most logical possibilities: that we have alien beings and spacecraft that are coming here from somewhere else, or we have demonic beings that are already here and have been here since the beginning.
This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll return to Linda Moulton Howe in just a moment. I think that Wayne Herschel's book, The Hidden Records, is a remarkable achievement. He has found in the ruins of ancient Egypt a map not just of Orion or of a certain part of the sky, but of the whole sky as it was thousands of years ago. His book is profusely illustrated, carefully written. It is brilliant, and the most brilliant thing about it is the list price and the price on Amazon is $36, but our price is $34.95, and you can get an additional $6 off. That's right, $6 off by simply inputting the coupon code HR1, that's HR and the number 1, into your shopping cart as you check out of the unknowncountry.com store. That takes it all the way down to $28.95 for this wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, special book. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. Let's go back to Linda Moulton Howe's Science Report.
A professional veterinarian doesn't want to get near that kind of subject matter because it could jeopardize your career?
Well, maybe not so much your career, but it could your business.
Well, that would be your career.
Yeah, you'd have to go somewhere else. I recently went to a conference, which I had an opportunity. There were many veterinarians there, and I took kind of a little private survey. And even then, you had to be careful how you approach somebody and inquired whether or not they had had any experience with this, and there were several. I would say that the majority of small town country veterinarians, those who do rural food animal practice, have had personal experience with these things. Mm-hmm. Most of them don't talk to anybody, not even their wives, about it.
And they don't because they are afraid what will happen?
I suppose it's the unknown. Probably more than worries about ridicule is because it's the unknown. Fear, I don't know if it's really a fear factor. But I know that it occurs an awful lot.
But you don't want to go on the record with your name and location?
Not at this point, no.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, is you're among most veterinarians make the same decision, and I'm trying to understand why, if this is an ongoing intrusion on our planet. They
can't prove anything. They have, even the most thorough of autopsies and investigations haven't provided any answers.
Meaning you can say that excisions were done in some cases with high heat, but you can't prove what the instrument was or who operated the instrument.
Right, or why.
In my first book, An Alien Harvest, that came out in 1989, there was a case that reminded me a little bit of this current Missouri case, and this goes back to March 10th, 1989, and in Hope, Arkansas, on the L.C. Wyatt farm, there were 5 cattle found in a straight line. The first impression at the scene and the photographs taken by the local newspaper were that the animals had been dropped dead in their tracks, as the editor of the newspaper said. And one cow was lying on her right side, and there was a large round cut area with the unborn calf still inside of the embryo sac, lying just sort of part legs inside the abdomen of the dead and mutilated mother, and the calf was inside of the embryo sac. And there was no blood on the ground. There was no fluid in the sac whatsoever. There should have been fluid in that sac. There should have been a tremendous amount of fluid coming from the pregnant cow, and yet everything was dry and these perfect excisions. The cow's belly had been cut 18 inches by 22 inches with something that definitely caused some kind of hot cautery, because we were able to get tissue from that animal and have it examined by a pathologist, hematologist, John C. Altshuler, who was working with me at the time, has now passed on, but he was instrumental in doing a lot of work on this Hope, Arkansas case, and was able to confirm that the tissue had been cut on that pregnant cow with something hot enough to cook the collagen and to have caused what he said was some kind of cautery of the capillaries in the veins so that there was no bleeding. Now, in the current Missouri case of 2004, the veterinarian said that upon examination that he was looking at muscle tissue in which there had even been hemoglobin removed from the capillaries. And that is exsanguination at a level, the removal of blood, that is highly unusual. You can get blood out of the veins and out of the arteries, but to get blood out of the capillary system is a whole other order of complexity.
Very weird case, Linda, and a first, a veterinarian, if anonymously, at last, admitting the truth. Extraordinary report. Thanks so much. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Dreamland as much as I did. Starfire Tor is a remarkable human being. So is Brandon Scott. Ann and I had dinner with Starfire and Brandon last week just to sort of get the lay of the land, because she is, after all, someone new to us. And I can tell you from personal experience, she is entirely sincere in what she is saying. And her conversation, by the way, with Ann Strieber in the subscriber section is even more remarkable in many ways than what she has told us on Dreamland. I think she is a really, really interesting individual. We're going to be spending more time in the future with Starfire Tor. Next week, William Henry is going to be with us again, and I am going to be interviewing William for once. We're going to have a two-part Dreamland about William's recent visit to Egypt. William got some really new information. He got into a restricted area. The Egyptian government allowed him to visit the area where the very oldest pyramid is located, and he made a find there that has never yet been reported at all by archaeologists, just because he knew what to look for, that is related in an incredible way that implies the existence of advanced ancient technology to the pyramids at Teotihuacan near Mexico City. Listen next week as William He's a stage magician. He's an illusionist in many, many different ways. He's performed his act all over the world. We've seen it. It's great. And I have seen it. He is with him an even more extraordinary person in some respects. I think Brandon will agree with me there. Starfire Tor, and I am going to have to ask Starfire to introduce herself. This is the first time she has ever interviewed in this particular way, and I think you'll find out why. We're going to be talking about time slips and time travel, movement through time, psi experiments, and all kinds of things that are really way out there beyond the edge with people who kind of do this all the time. And this is not beyond their edge. Brandon has a talk show called Out There, which I believe is on cable out in cyberspace, and over the course of the program, we will tell you a little bit more about it. But right now, I would like to introduce Brandon Scott and Starfire Tor. And to be honest with you, I don't know exactly where we are going. There are so many different areas that we could cover here. I want to say, let's start with the time material, Starfire, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what a time shift is, and maybe that's the best place to start. Or we may have already started there, I don't know.
I'd be happy to, Whitley. I am the discoverer and the chief researcher of a phenomenon called time shifts. And what I discovered was that the Earth actually fluctuates as far as reality is concerned. The Earth is forever changing. Things appear, disappear. In fact, I discovered that there is something called a core matrix. And if you think of your computer and you think of the hard drive, and then you think of these software programs that go into the hard drive that make things run, that's what our world is generated by. And it's attached to the human brain, which acts as a biosoftware. And I discovered that this is going on. Our planet actually becomes an edited version of itself, producing a myriad of coexisting timelines.
Now, this
Would you like to know how I discovered it?
Well, this isn't so different from what modern physics is actually saying about the nature of the universe. But yeah, I would like to know how you discovered it. I think we all would.
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I would notice things around.
Exactly what is this? That time kind of slips in, and so it's events mix up that are actually happening in two different times and get compressed into one memory. What? Define your terms a little bit more.
I'll do my best. I can talk about this for hours, but I'll try to compile this into moments. What I have discovered, and please understand this is an ongoing research project, and I don't have all of the answers. I just have a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of documentation. But what I have found out is that there are coexisting timelines, not just one parallel world, not just one consciousness, but in the world, in the timeline that we're talking in right now, the one that we are very aware of, I call that the dominant consciousness timeline. Now, it's probably very possible that we're all in 1,000 to 1,000,000 other timelines and we feel the exact same dominance. But since we're all agreeing that we are dominant here, that's how I refer to it.
Because, you know, there's a physicist who's just published a paper just recently saying that this is exactly correct, in effect, what you're saying. And not only that, we can conceivably, he's trying to build a machine, a serious time machine that will be able to travel back in time, and the so-called grandfather paradox will never happen because you will never travel back into a universe where it could happen. Now,
that is correct. I've been
now you're saying that you're living this right now.
Right now, and
Whoa.
I've published this, and I've been teaching the very thing that you just said. I've been teaching that.
Now, okay, folks, listen to this now. She is teaching people how to do this. And I did it, as you know, my listeners know, by accident in a Jeep with another guy's family's kid in the car. So I know it's possible. Here is a teacher of this. Let's listen.
That is correct. Now, one of the wonderful things that happened for me and my ability to teach what I had learned in research is the computer. So many people have computers. They know what a hard drive is and they know what the software. So when I talk about coexisting timeline, here's the way that I put it across. Let's say, Whitley, you're writing a script or a book right now. And so you will make your first draft and you save that to your hard drive, right? Okay?
Right.
And now you're going to make revisions, lots of revisions. But you never want to alter the original first draft. It says,
interestingly enough, August 25th is my wife's birthday.
It is?
Yeah, we're getting into some kind of weird time thing here already.
That's very interesting. Well, it's going to get real weird now. So the film was on Super 8, and the actor who took the film, he developed it, handed it to me, and years later when I moved out here, sometime in the 1980s, I had it transferred to video. Okay? And I just wrote down the date that I remembered, which was 1973. That seemed very simple. In fact, I had the newspaper articles to remind me of the date. So I'm sitting there waiting for the processing to take place, and then suddenly I realized, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the picture. It couldn't have been 1973. I wasn't even living there in that year. In fact, the person that I was with, I was married at that time, I hadn't even met him until 1974. And we weren't even living in that particular place until 1975. So how did this happen? So here we have a conundrum. We have the event documented as having happened in August of 1973, and yet I hadn't even met my then husband at the time until 1974, and yet he was one of the people present. Part of the first part of the film that my friend took of this has sort of those homey pictures of myself and my husband and my cat caught in time. And it's attached to the film. It's unedited. And in fact, I was just talking to my actor friend who said that he's ready actually to come forward and talk about his experience.
Oh, great.
So I think that's going to be a big, big step for him. So here we have one single event. It's a big event. Made the papers, and of course I have it on film, and of course I'm there on film in a time with people that I didn't even know at the time. All of this is documented. So that's my first case where I knew I had the documented evidence of a time shift, the shifting of time. Same event.
Now, when you say a time shift, exactly what do you mean? Are you talking about being in two different universes and kind of your consciousness moving between them, or?
That's going to remain golden, okay? So every time you do a revision, you edit, and you have a new script. But all of the revisions have been saved onto your hard drive. Now, think of each and every one of those revisions as a coexisting timeline, okay? And now you can go back into any one of these saved documents and pull out a paragraph here, a piece there, a chapter there, and you can do an editing job, a copy-paste. And you've created a new revised script. That's what's happening on this planet. We are being revised constantly. So all of the timelines exist at the same time. They are being saved on the hard drive that I call the core matrix. I used to call it the matrix until people picked up my research and began to write movies and so forth using it. So I changed it slightly to call it the core matrix, so that it would be understood that this is part of my research and not a movie. Okay? So that's very simply the way that works, but it even goes further. I have developed a scientific protocol something that Brandon has been working on with me for years that I call reality shift manifestation experiments. I can actually go into certain known vortex points that I have discovered, places where the energy is just right, and I can go through protocols and I can manifest objects. I can actually manifest objects, hundreds, whatever I want.
Now, when you say manifest, wait a minute, slow down, Starfire. This is real interesting, and we're going to have to get back to it in a couple seconds because we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, what in the heck does she mean, manifest objects? We'll be right back. Starfire Tor makes reference to language of the birds. Let's hear what William Henry has to say about his book.
The language of the birds is thought to be the original language that was spoken in the Garden of Eden. It's the mystery school language, and it's very interesting that you would bring it up because those in the know are constantly getting in touch with me saying, this is like your all-time best book. If anybody wants to get into William Henry material, they've got to read this because not only is it a great introduction, but it also represents the apex of sort of our mystery school understanding because this language offers the keys to the codes that opens up the mysteries. It literally puts you in resonance or in sync with the thought sphere of the mystery schools.
You can get William Henry's Language of the Birds from unknowncountry.com. Click on the store tab, then go to the William Henry.
Around me changing. For example, very simple, a blue shirt would suddenly become a yellow shirt, and not because there was an accident in the laundry. There would be a poltergeist-like activity, the keys moving around, objects appear, objects vanish, things that lots of people all over the world have all experienced. And then one day, when I was with two friends up on a roof in Miami, we filmed a UFO. I have it on film, and it was such a spectacular event that
when was
it made...
This?
What?
When was this? What time? What date?
Well, that's the interesting part of the story because
I thought it might be.
What actually happened is that what I discovered is that I have documented evidence of that one single event happening in 2 separate years. And that's how I absolutely got my first piece of hardcore documented evidence that time shifts exist and that we have coexisting timelines. So it's not just anecdotal. And I've spent a lifetime collecting actual hard evidence. So way back when, one of the men that I was with is a very well-known attorney now. The other one at the time was working for NBC, and he's now a very well-known actor, writer, and director, and I know that lots of people have seen him on something at some time. And it was this actor who was actually handling the camera, and we filmed the UFO, very spectacular, just right over the apartment where I was living. And like I said, it was so spectacular that it made the newspapers, and it even said that a highway patrolman chased the UFO down a particular expressway, even mentioned the street that I was living on.
If this made the newspapers, is there any place we could see the story on the Internet?
I don't know if the story's on the Internet. I have the hard copies of the paper, and I also have a copy from the microfiche when I visited down there. I don't know. I'm sure that it can be accessed through the Miami Herald, which is the newspaper that ran it. They're the primo paper down there.
Okay, what was the date that the story ran?
Well, it says, according to the documents that I have, August, I think August 25th of 1973. That's what